Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular town council meeting for Tuesday, January 22nd, 2019. Please rise for a moment of silence. Lead the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly, thank you. Fishbein?
Here.
Laffin?
Here.
Letourneau?
Here.
Marone?
Here.
Morgenstein? Here. Shortell?
Here.
Testa?
Here.
Zandri? And Chairman Cervoni.
Here, Councilor Zandri did advise me that he is hung up at work. And I would like to welcome Boy Scout Troop 47. Did I get that right? Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm sorry that we don't have more exciting or lots more business on our agenda. And on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve or accept consent agenda items A through F and H through K.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. On to item 4, items removed from the consent agenda. Item 3G has been removed from the consent agenda. Chief, thank you for coming. Councilor Fishbein, your item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, before I get started, I just wanted to, there's a gentleman in the audience, Gary Liu, who's been shadowing me tonight all day, actually. He's a student at UConn, trying to figure out what he wants to do with his life. So I just want to introduce him to the council. And with that, thank you, Chief, for coming. Chief, as you know, this has been somewhat of an issue with me once it's come to my attention about the scanning. And really what I wanted to focus on is the information that is obtained and possible retention. So we didn't get into it a lot last time, but when an officer scans the goes to a parking lot, let's say on voting day. Rock Hill School, there's a bunch of cars in the parking lot, and the officer takes it upon themselves to scan the plates in the parking lot. What information is recorded by the system?
So the system will record the registered owner's information that's attached to the plate, and the actual information contained within the registration itself, make, model, year of expiration, etc. It will also record any information that's been loaded into the database to include wanted persons, missing persons, persons that are endangered, whether or not the registered owner of the vehicle's license is in good standing, whether or not there's insurance is reported by DMV on the vehicle, etc.
Okay, what about warrants?
Wanted persons by the registered owner of the vehicle only.
Yeah, so the scanning system itself can't establish whether or not the individual or individuals that are in the vehicle are the wanted person.
True.
So is there a procedure in place with regard to, because usually when you go to a home with a warrant, you have a description of the individual, you know who you're looking for, that person answers the door. Here, we have the nondescript scanning of a plate. We don't know if it's, there's a warrant for me and my wife's driving my car.
Right. So as we do now, all of that information that's loaded into either collect or DMV needs to be separately verified by either a hardline phone call to the originating agency, if it's not us, or otherwise confirmed by the officer. So we don't act on what would necessarily be a hit on the system alone, because I can tell you that there are some times that wanted persons, in this case, aren't cleared from collect. They're not cleared, right? So the warrant's been appropriately served, person's appeared in court, has maybe even processed through whatever the issue is, but for some reason, the originating agency never cleared that out of collect, which shows that he or she is still wanted. So everything needs to be, as we do now, independently verified.
Okay, so, and I think one of the things that you talked about, or we talked about at some point regarding this, was the Oakdale situation.
Yes, sir.
And is it fair to say that, my understanding is that with regard to that situation, there was a description given by a witness as to, I think it was black BMW, and that if the system was there, that it would have helped in the investigation.
That's accurate.
Okay. And isn't it true that the system would have had to, so would that have been a mobilization of the system, or would it be the department's procedure to, at times, based upon a particular event at a particular location, that this scanning system would be automatically set up to ascertain who's going and coming from a place?
No, absent some qualifying reason to do so, there wouldn't be any, pre-positioning of the device, in this case at the Oakdale, for, an untold reason. There wouldn't be a legitimate use in that regard. I will tell you this, a lot of times when we get overnight robberies of convenience stores and such, the first thing that one of our officers does after we've secured the scene is on foot, typically, marks down all the plates in a square block. Because you don't know if someone parked, a block away, came through a backwoods way, if you will, to the store, completed the robbery, and is now on his or her way back to the vehicle. So we record all of that, because it can be important later on as the investigation unfolds as to whether or not those cars are involved or not. It's an investigative tool.
And then I think you had said with regard to the car break-ins that at various times perpetrators are entering the town from various places. There is no set pattern, so perhaps this is a system that could be set up on a stationary location, a particular entryway, that if you ascertain thereafter that something's happening in a particular area, more than likely came in from that way, that you would have scanned the plates of everyone coming into town at that location.
Potentially, if the operation would reveal that would be beneficial to us.
Okay. And then retention in general. My understanding is there is no standard operating procedure as to the retention of this information, especially location of where the scanned plates are, that presently would be your intention to keep that information forever?
No. So the way that the retention laws are written is if the information obtained from a license plate reader system becomes part of a case, if you will, then that information shall be retained in the case file itself. If the information that's gained by the system is not used for any other purpose, then it shall be destroyed.
And at what point is it determined whether or not it's part of the case? Only because I had a very engaging debate with one of your detectives the other night about this issue. And, he gave me some scenarios where it may be of assistance. Well, I'll give you one, where there's break-ins in a particular area and they're using a relative's car. And, because of the information gleaned, there's no suspect at that point. But 3 months later, scanned plates, we find out that another relative and you're able to cross-reference of person from that first incident, one of their relatives' cars is involved, and, it can perhaps bring it to a triangulation here. So in that particular case, it would be helpful, although there wasn't a hit originally, to retain that information. So based upon what you're saying, is that original information would be destroyed, or there is a retention?
No, so it's, as I think I explained 2 weeks ago, our information that we capture, if you will reside on a state police server. It's their backbone. I believe that and I'm fairly positive that their retention period is 90 days, and then the information will roll off.
Okay, can you because I did submit a bill about this issue. My understanding is that there is no retention period through the state. At least that's what I'm being told. And I can't always rely upon what I'm being told. I've seen no documentation to that effect.
Retention period by state statute or by policy?
Either, that there is no state statute nor policy.
Okay, I believe that there is state statute under the statutes for data retention. And I have that, if you just give me a second.
Sure.
So under Schedule M7 of the Records Retention Schedule, M7-750, license plate scan records resulting in enforcement action. Description: license plate image and metadata compiled and cross-referenced to MDC transmissions, which is the mobile data terminal. Minimum retention: retain as part of the case file. Disposition: destroy after receipt of signed form RCO 75, which is from the state librarian, which gives us the authority to destroy records, for all records. And then section M7-760, license plate scan records resulting in no enforcement action. In the same description, license plate image and metadata compiled and cross-referenced to MDC transmissions. Minimum retention: there's no requirement, and the disposition is destroy. Those are the circumstances, Craig, which we indicated where no action was taken, and then after a period of time it just rolls off.
But it said that there's no minimum, correct?
No minimum.
So I didn't see that there was a maximum.
Doesn't state a maximum,
Okay.
at least on this schedule.
Yeah, so, and forgive me if I'm just missing it, it would appear to me that without a hit, that there is no directive as to destruction of that information, based upon what you just read.
Correct.
Okay, so is it fair to say that that jives with my information that I've gotten elsewhere? That there is no state mandate as far as destruction of the electronically received data when there is not a hit?
It would seem so.
Okay. If there was to be some sort of provision, what would be acceptable to you?
We could talk about timeframes tonight, and what would become important in a case would be one day, less than what we would need in some circumstances. I can tell you that it's an incredible amount of data to keep. Although I'm sure it's just text packets that come through, there's no images associated with the data. I can't imagine that we'd want to keep that any longer than what the server could possibly hold. 90 days would be really great, but then again, that's a long time, that's a lot of data, and I don't want to certainly be part of something or a decision that requires other agencies to now, ramp up their storage capacity based on, this issue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it two different planes here, so I guess the town council could come up with an ordinance or some sort of direction, I suppose. And I totally get where you're coming from. Yeah, I'll tell you that the detective that I was speaking with about this was advocating for a year based upon the situation, the triangulation situation. So, as I said before, I have faith in you. Just concerned about the civil liberties aspect of this whole thing.
Understand.
But thank you for coming and thank you for answering the questions. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly. We have a motion, please, on this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, first I wanted to also welcome Troop 47, where I became an Eagle Scout 20 years ago. So thanks for making me feel old as I look out there. We've talked about this, I thought, extensively in the last meeting, so I'm ready to motion to approve the appropriation of funds in the amount of $10,000 to the Revenue State Grant Fund and to the LPR reader account.
Second.
Moved and seconded. So we were here 2 weeks ago, Chief. You came before us with a bid waiver. And the bid waiver was to allow you to buy the same hardware that interfaces with the state's data system. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you could have avoided us by going out to bid on this item. Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
But you saw the benefit of the device that would allow you to interface with the state's data system. Not only that, you had a donation from, was it the Nucor fundraising? I think they had a golf tournament.
Yes.
And then you were anticipating receiving this grant of $10,000, which is part of the motion, and that's really what we're here to do tonight. 2 weeks ago, the council, but for one vote, had approved the bid waiver to allow you to purchase this particular item, and tonight we're just accepting a $10,000 grant to balance the purchase funds.
I was unsure 2 weeks ago how the state was going to push the grant funds to us. Sometimes it's reimbursement, sometimes it's upfront, sometimes it's 50-50. So until I could get my arms around what the program was going to require, it was not appropriate for me to ask for the funding source 2 weeks ago. But between then and now, I make this request of you.
And so if this motion passes, we're accepting the grant funds tonight.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council? Questions or comments from the public? If not, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Fishbein,
Yes.
Laffin,
Yes.
Letourneau,
Yes.
Marone,
Yes.
Morgenstein,
Yes.
Shortell has left the room, Testa,
Yes.
and Chairman Cervoni.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Chief, thank you for your time. Good evening. The next item on the agenda is the public question and answer period. Any questions, comments from the public of a general nature? There being none, I close the public question and answer period. I understand there are no items for item 6, the executive session. And that being the case, there being no further business on the agenda, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.